Welcome to Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Eldridge.
And I'm Andrea Eldridge.
And welcome to Growth Marketer Academy.
Today we're going to teach you how to gain leads for your business without cold calling or knocking on doors. So this is the first podcast in our series, How to Gain Leads Without Cold Calling or Door-to-Door Sales, because we all know that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, forget about it. It's ridiculous.
But the thing is we also all know that the only way to grow is to gain leads. And it's also the hardest part. So It's this terrible oxymoron about business management, business growth, is that you have to get leads, but getting them sucks terribly. So what we've put together in this podcast series is 5 steps to becoming a lead generating machine.
So as you were mentioning, nobody wants to do leads. Nobody wants to prospect for leads or do sales. We all start our businesses to do work that we want to do. So
work that we enjoy or are passionate about in one way, shape, or form. But you can't do that work without a customer to do it for, because the sad reality of life is, as much as we would love to all just do what we love, you still have to have somebody who pays you for it.
Yes. So what we would normally do in a normal world, which we're not in, but normal, we hire some amazing salesperson. He'll go out and bring us a bunch of sales, and then we get to kick back as business owners or
and do what you want to do.
And just do the work. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Yep.
Okay.
But before we get too far into the how-tos, we should really cover why you all should take our word for it, because who the heck are you, really, in the scheme of things?
Well,
besides your charm and affability.
Well, I'm Ryan Eldridge. I'm the chief strategist at Squirrel Digital Marketing. I started my career some 20-something years ago. I can't do the math anymore.
Yeah.
Started out in retail sales. I was a 17-year-old kid selling shoes in a shoe store, and it was interesting.
Sexy, kinda.
Yeah, kinda. Like Al Bundy.
Obviously, it got me but in the end. But really,
it's how we met.
Yes. Yeah.
But the interesting thing about selling in retail is it taught me how to create a sales funnel without even knowing I was doing it. So somebody'd come in and they'd want to buy one pair of shoes, and I would naturally say, well, if you're going to buy those dress shoes, why wouldn't you buy some casual shoes too? And you always going to need some sort of protector, some sort of polish or something like that. And how about these other shoes for sandals, and so on and so forth. So it really taught me how to do up sales and down sales and cross sales, and to, once you've gained a customer, to just keep selling until they stop buying.
Well, and really, I think all of us that have a website understand the concept that you have a lot of people that window shop, that come and visit, but I mean, how do you get them from stopping by to the point where they actually are interested enough in a specific item to have you, take it out and let them look at it, and then even larger hurdle, how to get them to choose to buy that item and then maybe buy other things too, or come back later at a later date. That is, in essence, the path of a customer in any way, shape, or form, and retail sales, and ultimately what turned into retail management for you really gave you the opportunity to not only...
Is this my bio or your bio?
Do that, but also to train others in how to do it effectively. And so
tell me more about me.
That was your most kind of pivotal starting point when it came to digital marketing, the marketing part of digital.
And so then after I got done with retail and just kind of burned out of it, I started basically a marketing agency. I'll say the words at some point here, but I started a marketing agency.
Because obviously you weren't done with sales, you just were done with sales in the format of retail.
I was tired of selling shoes, frankly. I mean, there's only so many shoes, and I have a huge shoe collection. I have more shoes than she does, so.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so anyway, we started a marketing agency, and I did that for several years, and then we moved to Northern California from Southern California in 2003, and started another company, kind of by accident, called Nerds on Call, which is a consumer IT company. And when we started it, the funny thing about it was we were just trying to pay our mortgage. I didn't want to really start another company. I just wanted to do odd jobs to pay our mortgage until we figured out what the next big thing was going to be. And then just in a few years, we had 12 stores all over the West Coast, and it took over our lives, and that's all we did. And then right around, while we were doing it, we were doing all of our marketing was all old school, old media stuff. So we were doing radio, television, newspapers, a lot of print advertising, and that's how we were gaining our customers. And then lo and behold, in 2008, the world came to an end, and all of a sudden, nobody was reading newspapers anymore. Nobody's listening to the radio.
It was a little more subtle of a transition than that. But yeah, it just seemed like it was like everything that worked for us in the past wasn't working anymore. And I'm sure a lot of you had a similar experience in terms of like the marketing venues that have worked for you in the past no longer working for you anymore. And what do you do?
Yeah, our costs just kept going up, and we were getting less and less customers. So we ended up saying, well, we'd always said at that point, our customers aren't online. Our customers aren't going on Google and looking for us, but we weren't keeping up. And it turns out that's where they were going. We had a huge phone book bill. We were paying like $11,000 just to be in phone books all over the West Coast. And we just said, well, what if we just take that same kind of budget we're doing in marketing, which is about 15% of our total gross sales, and threw that into digital instead? And so we opened up an AdWords account, and I started bidding on keywords and creating a better, easier to use website. And it just started from there. And that's really where the last 14 years of my life has been, doing nothing but digital marketing for Nerds on Call. And then we got the bright idea of opening Squirrel Digital Marketing, where we could help other people do it too.
Because you really spent the first 10 years kind of figuring it out the hard way on Nerds on Call.
Experimenting with my own money rather than someone else's.
And then once we figured out the ways that were most effective, then it was really more rewarding to be able to take that out and help other companies grow their business with the things that we learned our own way.
So that's me. Who the heck are you? I mean, you're pretty and all, but I mean, come on.
So I am creative director at Squirrel Digital Marketing. My journey was a little bit different than Ryan's. I actually, after graduating from UC Davis, I started working for Merrill Lynch in their financial department and was there for a number of years before Ryan lured me away to work with his marketing agency for a while. And, as you mentioned, when we moved up to Northern California, we ended up with kind of this odd opportunity that came up at the right time where my mom got a virus on her computer. And it was something where Ryan was the most technical in our family and went over to get her computer cleaned up. And as he was there, she was complaining that, gosh, this should be easier. Why isn't there anyone that can come out to our house and do this? And between the two of us, we were like, you know what, that's true. That makes a lot of sense for everyone that had these big tower machines and didn't want to drag them into a shop. And so the business was born, but we had no anticipation then of how successful that would be. But through a lot of work and hard effort over those early years and beyond, we were able to grow that company to the size that it was. And part of my transition was one from completely non-technical, computers did nothing but annoy me, to now I was not only working on them every day, but having to be able to explain to our customers how their own gadgets and technology and networking, how that all worked. In a language that was easier to understand than the language that it often came to me from the more technical of our party. And so I really got to a point where I was able to take something that was pretty complicated and ideally make it something more understandable for our average customer. So I was approached by our local paper about writing a weekly column, which I've now been writing for probably the last, 15 years. That eventually became a syndicated column for Scripps Howard for a while.
You were writing two columns for a while.
I was writing two columns for a while.
That's fun.
And so that actually then ended up being where we were approached by some TV stations about doing TV appearances so that we could bring this information to a wider audience and how technology can make your life easier instead of just purely more complicated. So we started doing shows like Good Day Sacramento, Fox 2 in Oakland, More Good Day Portland. We continue to do those to this day. So that's really what my primary focus became. And now I do creative development, including content for clients, our own site segments, and I maintain producer relationships as well. And that's pretty much where I am these days.
All right. So
that's us. So that's us in a nutshell. No pun intended with the Squirrel Digital Marketing side of things. I always have to try not to make too many nuts comments because it's a little awkward. But
yeah, I like it when you talk about nuts.
Okay, that is awkward. That's awkward. So what we found was, our biggest hurdle. At one point, we got to the point with the direct-to-consumer market where we realized that we either had to get bigger and extend out to more geographical locations, which was challenging with management staff and kind of would have really changed the dynamic of how we ran our company. or offer additional services to customers that we weren't previously reaching. And we decided to go with Path B, which basically led to our beginning to work on launching a business IT services division. But our biggest hurdle really was how to get customers, because our experience up until that point was entirely different. It was in how to go and get the consumer customer. Our normal paths weren't going to work in terms of...
You can't just do a couple of AdWords ads or a Facebook campaign and suddenly, or drop a flyer in the newspaper.
And reach a decision maker.
Yeah,
in the
and
company.
suddenly get somebody to say, hey, I'll give you 20 grand to set up my network and buy some computers and get you on some sort of continuity program. Yeah.
And really, up until that point in our experience level, what we had always been taught and what we'd seen from other companies was that the way to get a business customer was with either cold calls or door to door, like just pounding the pavement, going to conferences, going to marketing events or networking events, I guess, in your local community, and just getting face to face with the person that you wanted to sell your service to. And that really wasn't effective, and it sucked. kind of both.
So that leads us to how do we generate viable leads without spending a bunch of money, knocking on doors, holding little conferences, or going to these endless events where you're networking with everybody who's trying to sell everybody else something, right? So how do you do it?
Yeah, and ultimately, once we kind of discovered that for our own brand, it led to our ability to realize that everybody faces these same problems. Everybody has these same hurdles. And for every business-to-business company out there, there had to be a better way. We certainly hoped there was a better way. And that led to our being able to fine-tune that and develop our digital marketing brand, Squirrel Digital Marketing.
And so we've ultimately narrowed it down to there's basically 5 steps to lead generation, and they're not exactly simple. So what we're going to do is over the next few podcasts, we're going to go over deep dive into each different section. So that way, whether you're looking to do prospecting to determine which kind of clients you want to go after, or whether you're going after like how to do a social marketing campaign or email marketing campaign or content marketing. I mean, we're going to go into all of those and deep dive into each one of those subjects on how to gain customers using each one of those methods.
Well, and I think more importantly, we'll go over the order that you should really attack them in, because for every manager or business that's been, in the position of having to generate leads, where do I start? What do I do first? Should I start with SEO? Should I start with content? Should I start with email marketing? Or should I try and do it all simultaneously? The generating a defined path to success and to gaining viable leads, I think, is, for my organizational mind, really a relief, because then it doesn't feel as overwhelming when you know where to start.
So when we started Squirrel, we said, okay, well, first thing we're going to have to do is start getting customers. So I hired somebody that I'd worked with in the past over at Nerds, and he said he was a really good sales guy, had a great British accent, and everybody loves British accents. So I thought, okay, well, this guy will be able to sell all kinds of stuff. And so what we did is we started looking around for ways that we could get in front of decision makers. And one of the things we did is we were doing an appearance on ABC TV here in Sacramento, and we were driving back from it in the car together, and we saw a big billboard for a spinal surgeon. A freaking spinal surgeon has a billboard, and we were like, this doesn't make any sense. This just doesn't. I mean, who buys spinal surgery from a freaking billboard? It just didn't make any sense to me at all. So we got back to the office, and we decided to, kind of bend our ethics a little bit, and we called the spinal surgeon place, and we kind of pretended, without lying, but we pretended that we were from the billboard company, and we were doing a survey to see how effective the billboard was. And so we asked them how many leads they had generated from this billboard and how long it had been up. And they said, well, they generated 2 leads in the last 12 months.
And gosh, you were lucky that they didn't follow that up with, and we want to cancel our contract because that was a terrible response rate for how much we're spending.
I would have said that was a terrible response rate, and that makes a lot of sense. And I'd give them a new number to call to talk to the sales department or the retention department. Anyway, so after talking to them, we got off the phone, and then we turned around and called the billboard company, and we said, well, let's get some stats down. How much is that billboard cost? We pretended like we were going to buy the billboard. How much would it cost? How many people see it, and all the demographics about it. And it turned out it was like $3,000 a month the guy was paying, and you had to sign a 12-month contract. But you were seeing 750,000 people, I think it was in a month. I don't remember
that would
if it was
drive
that month
past
or
it
year.
and just see it.
And so it was like a huge, wow, this is a really good branding opportunity. But then when we started looking at it, was $3,000 a month over 12 months, and then you're still only getting 2 leads a year, even if you're a spinal surgeon spending, making tons of money on each thing, that's terrible. That's a terrible conversion rate.
Yeah.
And so we got the bright idea. We wrote up this big proposal and said, well, instead of spending $3,000 a month on this stupid billboard that's not making you any money, instead give us that money and we'll run some campaigns for you in digital. And we'll set up your website a little bit better. We'll do some SEO. We'll do some pay-per-click, just some basic
all
stuff.
numbers that made total sense for the fact that
Perfect sense.
This dollar investment here is only gaining you this much, and over here it can gain you so much more.
So we built this great proposal. We had these nice graphics in it, and we really spent a lot of time on it. Nice paper, that really good business paper you can get at Staples, So we got all the good stuff, right? And then we thought, down here in Sacramento, we have a place called Editori's that does these amazing donuts, these European-style donuts. And so we went in and bought a bunch of those and got the proposal, and we walked into the office thinking, okay, this is a slam dunk. We're going to make this guy so much money, he's going to have to read our proposal, and he's going to eat all of our yummy treats, right?
The secretary said, hold up. That ain't happening. You're never going to meet this doctor.
Yeah. So when we got in there, they said, thanks for the treats. I'll give this to the doctor. And then we spent a few days trying to follow up, saying, hey, can we talk to the doctor? Can we talk to the doctor? Can we talk to the doctor? And we just kept getting the same gatekeeper over and over again. We ended up going in a few days later with even more treats, hoping to bribe the receptionist to let us through, and we still couldn't see the doctor. Weird thing is, I actually saw the doctor at a gym class for my son, and he still
also would have been a not appropriate
hey,
time
by the
to
way,
talk about that proposal.
Yeah.
So there's really not the right time when you do it that way.
So that's when we quickly learned that we cannot do cold walking in and trying to get somebody to buy something. And there's one other little story. That ultimately leads me to another story. If we have time to talk about one more story, so
there's always time for stories.
So I was at another client, and we were talking, and he had a big fake plastic diamond sitting on his desk, and I picked it up.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, come on. And I picked it up and I was like, what is this thing? And he goes, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. Essentially, someone had sent it to him in the mail, this little diamond, and said, would you like to make this real? I mean, who wouldn't, right?
Yeah,
I want to
sounds
make
great.
Yeah, it's not okay. And I asked him, well, did you ever call him and say, what's this opportunity that you got for me? And he goes, no, I never did. But I got the cool little diamond.
Yeah.
So there's that. And when we had nerds, when we were doing nerds all the time, we had Enterprise.
Fleet Services.
Fleet Services kept trying to get our attention because we had these little nerd cars that would drive all over the place, and they wanted to sell us cars. And so one of the salesmen sent me a little green, little squishy stress car that I could squeeze and play with. Well, I just took that home and gave it to my baby and said, here you go, Jackson. Here's a brand new stress ball. I never called him.
Toy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes to those types of kind of gimmicky marketing things, the idea behind them being that when the person's in the mindset of needing your service, they'll have something memorable and think of you, which sounds great. But the truth is, if you really think as a business owner to how many services you actually subscribed to or purchased purely based on having some item that they sent you that was typically something that most people throw away, and it's such a waste of money, whether it's pens or rocks or paperweights or staplers.
Rocks?
A paperweight, I was thinking, but I said rocks. I don't know. Rocks is totally the next marketing venue.
So direct marketing with toys and baubles doesn't work. Door-to-door sales doesn't work. We can't send cold emails that just says, hey, decision maker, please buy my stuff. We can't call because the gatekeeper will never let us talk to anybody, right? And so we're kind of trapped in this old world of trying to gain leads by physically trying to touch every single person, and nobody will get to. If you called Nerds on Call right now and tried to talk to one of us, you'll never get us on the phone. No matter what great business idea you have, no matter how much money you'll make us or how much money you'll save us every year, you just can't get through because there's so many people doing these old school methods that it's just a waste of energy and time. And
it's such a drain on your time and resources as a business owner or as someone in a decision-making position for
I had somebody call me the other day and trying to trick the gatekeeper. And what they did is they basically said, I have an appointment with Ryan today at 3, and I just want to go over something with him real quick before the meeting. And they didn't know.
Pretty
and so
ingenious.
they called me and said, hey, this guy's got an appointment with you at 3. And he says he just wants to talk to you real quick. And I'm like, I don't have an appointment at 3 o'clock today. That's ridiculous.
And I'm going to guess that by the time you got around to the guy, you were more ticked off at him than you were
of
interested in
course.
hearing from him.
I didn't call him, but had I called him, I would have given him a piece of my mind because it was just annoying.
Nobody likes being tricked.
Yeah, you feel
and
tricked.
When you're busy, you're like, dude, why is your time more important than mine? So really all this comes down to is reaching the right person at the right time, and that's the biggest challenge we all face, but that's what we're here to talk about.
Yes, so the good news is I've solved it. I figured out how to do it, and we're going to tell you guys how to do it. You
Perfect.
ready? So let's do it.
Let's get to it. Series in general. So let's talk about, so that you guys know what's coming over the course of this podcast. So we're going to talk about our 5 things. Number 1 is targeting and prospecting, which is the first step that you have to do. You have to identify who it is that you want to reach before you can create any sort of an effective marketing campaign of any way, shape, or form. Number 2 is email marketing, which I know you kind of briefly mentioned that you can't use email to reach leads. You can,
but I have a brilliant strategy.
It has to be done the right way.
Yeah.
So if you want to use email to generate leads, stay tuned. We'll be getting to that soon.
And then we're going to talk about paid and organic search. See, I'm taking over. See, she's reading all the list, and I'm not getting a chance to say it, so now I'm taking over. So I'm going to do paid and organic search, and essentially how to get your ad in front of the right person at the right time, right? And then we're going to talk about social marketing, which is how to use social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, how to connect with your leads directly.
Which is the question we get all the time these days, because everybody's on social media. And so what everybody wants to know as a business perspective is, how do I use that effectively without it sucking my soul dry in terms of the time it takes to use. So, and it can be an effective way to reach your lead. But when it comes to a business-to-business market, it's different than when it's a business-to-consumer.
Yeah, because you can't just post a nice picture, or my favorite is the little Canva where it's basically just a picture of a mountaintop and then an inspiring quote. And you're thinking that's going to convert? I mean, seriously. And then putting an intern, a 17-year-old intern, to do it for you, 7-8 times a day, hoping that your 300 followers will be able to check that. It's never going to work. And that gets really frustrating. Or you say, somebody says, I gotta run Facebook ads, and they don't know how to do that either. And so then they burn through a bunch of money, and they still aren't generating any leads because their targeting's off, or their creative's off, or whatever else. So we're going to go over how to do that too. And then what's the last one?
Content marketing, which obviously is my forte there. But really, before you create content, you need to determine what content your potential lead is interested in seeing and is relevant before you waste just countless hours writing blogs or segments or whatever content you're going to be creating that a customer may never see.
Yeah, because if you've got like a dental billing software, right? And you think, what my clients really want to know all about is the cool WYSIWYGs that I have and the social integration I have with my blah, blah, blahs. And they don't care about that stuff, then you're going to waste a bunch of time building out a bunch of content that makes absolutely no sense to anybody.
Yep. Well, it may make sense to some people, but not the people that you care about.
Yeah.
So, so what our structure is here in these podcasts is going to be to basically dive really deep into a couple core concepts in each podcast. Today, since we had to spend a lot of time talking about who we are and what we are, we just kind of wanted to give you a bit of an introduction to targeting and prospecting, which is really the first step, the most important step, and the basis of what any campaign that you're going to launch into. Because ultimately, before you can develop a marketing plan, you have to identify who you want to reach.
Yeah, exactly. So especially in a business-to-business environment, you might be dealing with different levels of management and different people that you have to target. So we're going to talk about how to find and map a company's infrastructure to determine who you need to talk to, and then how to reach them, how to craft a message or an ad campaign or a search campaign crafted to each one of those people in each of those decision-making, in that decision-making tree.
So, you're going to be identifying things like, where are those people hanging out, and are there social media platforms that they gravitate to, and possibly one of the most important parts, what are the pain points of your customer? What is it that is frustrating enough for them that they're potentially going to be looking online to find a solution.
And if you're dealing with like a small business, right, the pain points and all of this is going to be targeted towards probably one decision maker. But in a medium-sized business, you have multiple layers of decision makers, and the pain points for each decision maker is going to be different, right? Your low-level person is going to be frustrated with efficiency and time and whatever, and the management's going to be more concerned about costs and prices. And of course, your last layer, maybe the C-level class, is looking for a whole different set of things, like how is implementation going to work, and what if I buy this product and nobody adopts it? So we're going to talk about that.
If you're going to be working up a chain of command, then you also need to be able to identify each of those layers individually in order to make sure that you reach them at the right time and the right place.
Yep.
So I know we talked about that it's going to be 5 things that are ultimately for your marketing plan in general, but when it comes to targeting and prospecting in particular, there are 3 key points to developing that targeting and prospecting for your specific customer. And while, so we want to make sure that we're introducing those concepts in an easier to understand way. So the first step to targeting and prospecting is something called an audience analysis. And so what is an audience analysis?
Well, I mean, it's really where you're going to identify a group of people or that you're going to try to sell your products and services to. So let's just we'll go all the way back to retail again, because it's just my favorite subject in the whole world. Let's say you're a shoe developer, right? You've created the greatest shoe that makes you run faster, jump higher, and look sexier when you go to the club, that kind of stuff. And you need to now get that product into buyers' hands for major retail chains, Macy's, Nordstrom's, Saks Fifth Avenue, wherever it is. And you need to find out information about each one of those buyers. And ultimately, where are they going to find information about the hot new item, right? Are they going to cruising along Melrose? Or are they looking at trade publications? Are they looking at different fashion events? Where are they getting their information to make their decisions? Or are they just kind of relying on salespeople? I know there's 2 major fashion shows every year in Las Vegas that we used to go to when we were doing retail sales. And so we would get a lot of our information from there.
And an audience analysis really cycles around identifying the specific vertical that you're going after. And some products have an inherent vertical. For example, if you were a dental billing software application, your specific customer is going to be a dental office. Now, in that office, you're going to have specific targets, but you're ultimately looking for dental offices to sell your product to. But there are companies and industries that have a broader reach. Say, for example, a digital marketing service company, that could apply to any number of businesses. And so in order to formulate an effective marketing campaign, you need to isolate a specific target that you want to reach.
A specific like vertical or industry, right?
Yes. So if you don't have an inherent vertical for your business, you need to basically narrow it down to a specific vertical for each individual campaign.
Like a local business HVAC repair, or maybe you're going after like an enterprise level IT service company or something.
Because they're going to be different each. And so the first step in your audience analysis is really identifying who you want to reach. Who's the decision maker in that specific company that you're looking to reach. For example, in that dental billing software example, a smaller office, you'd be targeting probably the dentist themselves. In a slightly larger office, maybe the billing coordinator, or for a larger dental company, you'd be looking more at higher level management or a CFO. So that all is in your audience analysis.
And then you use that information, and basically that's step 2 or the next part of it. I can't remember if we're on steps or what we're doing. But anyway, the next part of it is we basically create a customer persona or avatar, which I think that a lot of people outside of the marketing space kind of see it as a waste of time, that they have to like kind of figure out who people are and then try to create these
little
personas.
Fake people. Yeah, I know initially when I was first introduced to customer personas, I was like, this seems kind of like an elementary school game where you like make up Fred, and Fred does, what does Fred do on his days off? But really, that's kind of what you're doing for your prospect, for your potential customer, because you really need to know Fred.
Yeah, well, ultimately what you're doing is you're taking a concept or basic personality traits, demographics, things like that, and building out a more generic person that you can then craft your marketing messages to. So for an example, we go back to your dental billing software, you're going to market differently to the frontline worker who's doing the data entry. And so you got to do, like, her name is Sally, and she's a 20-something and whatever.
You really need to create a picture of that person, and it can sometimes take a little creativity, and it could be very time consuming. But we've got some tips and tricks that can make it easier. And
we're going to deep
possible.
dive into how to create personas in the next episode, and that's going to tell you, like, we'll give you examples. We've even got a template you can download to create your own, and so we're going to create a whole thing, so you don't have to worry about, like, learning it all now, but we're going to deep dive into it in the next episode.
And it's important to understand the steps involved so that you know why you have to do it in this specific order.
Yeah. So where are we at next?
Your final piece of targeting and prospecting of our three pieces that targeting and prospecting breaks down to is creating a keyword matrix, which sounds like a kiwababa, but really it means something important.
It's where Morpheus and Neo show up and they say, no, it's all fake.
Red pill, blue pill. Yeah.
Red pill, blue pill. Yeah, exactly. So, a keyword matrix is kind of cool. It's cool in a nerdy kind of marketing kind of way. So what it is, let's say you're going to start a marketing campaign, like there's no such thing as
cool and nerdy.
Nerdy cool? Yeah. I mean, Marvel. Come on. Captain America. These are all nerdy. Anyway, we'll get into that debate later. But ultimately, when you create a keyword matrix, you need to be able to determine what kind of language your customers are using in order to find you, right? And so if I'm going to go back to shoes, because she's doing dental software, I'm doing shoes. So if you're gonna let's say target people in a business to consumer market that's looking for shoes, just going after the word shoes on Facebook or Google, you're gonna spend $1 million on every single click, and you're gonna get all of this unrelated traffic.
People looking for hiking shoes, people looking for the
Wikipedia articles about shoes or the history of shoes, a bunch of junk. And so what you got to do is narrow that down and create a long tail keyword, which is essentially making that keyword more specific. Red high heel pumps with 4-inch heels, patent leather, right? That would be a really long keyword, but boy, you really know exactly what that person's looking for. And we're going to get into how to create a keyword matrix and give you very specifics on how to take a core keyword and add prefixes and suffixes on it in order to find these bigger, longer tail keywords.
Because that process, I mean, if you were trying to do it by hand, could become hugely challenging and complicated. But the truth is, there's a lot of great tools and tips for making that feasible and possible. And I've seen keyword matrices. They can be intense.
They are.
But they don't have to be for the creation, which is ultimately what we're going to talk about next episode.
When we first created our very first keyword matrix, we didn't know this at the time. And maybe a lot of you guys don't even know this, but Google AdWords actually has a limit to how many keywords you can put into Google AdWords. I bet most people don't know that. It's 5 million.
And we hit that.
Oh yeah, I hit that.
Yeah.
We had to start a new account because we hit it, because we were like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's all we can do.
Sounds like overkill.
A keyword matrix can expand really fast. But here again, one of the core features of doing those long tail keywords is really more about going after high intent as well as low cost. Right? We want high intent and low cost. And we're going to get into how to target all that in the next episode. So we'll get into the keywords.
So basically what we wanted to do this episode was just kind of introduce the stuff we're going to be talking about in this series, but also to kind of give you just the basis of what you need to know to put together targeted prospects. And next episode, we're going to talk about how the heck do you put these things together? And next time, I think I thought of it as we're getting down and dirty with how to create an audience analysis, identify your personas, and we might even get into developing a keyword matrix if we can. We might have to split that into its own episode because apparently it is its own episode worth of material. So.
Who really would want to sit through a 30-minute episode about keyword matrix? So we'll see what we can do to stuff it in there, but I don't want to bore everybody too much, but it's pretty exciting for me.
Important.
And it's important, yeah.
The basis steps, while they are kind of they can be challenging, they create the basis for the whole rest of your campaign. And if you start off on the wrong path or the wrong foot, then you can waste a lot of time and money really going in the wrong direction. Yeah. So important stuff coming up.
All right, everybody. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge.